established Rich coming right back at you. Sometimes the strangest story in sports don't happen on the court. They happen in somebody's house. And right now, one of the biggest stories floating around the internet has nothing to do with basketball and everything to do with the personal life of Dwight Howard. Now, most people know Dwight Howard as one of the most dominant big men of his era. 8-time All-Star, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, NBA champion, a man who once carried the Orlando Magic to the NBA Finals and was one of the most marketable players in the league. But over the years, it feels like his personal life been just as loud as his basketball career. Relationship stories, lawsuits, controversies, moments where his name starts trending and people ain't even talking about sports. And now, here we go again, because over the last few days, the internet has been flooded with a very emotional video posted by his wife, Amy Luciani. In that video, she appears extremely distressed, talking about their marriage, their home, and a very serious situation involving Child Protective Services. She claims CPS has been to their house multiple times, and according to her, during one of those visits, they left with her daughter. That alone is enough to make people stop and pay attention. But what made the internet really explode was what she did next. She made a video accusing Dwight of having serious problems. At one point, even holding up a bag of white substance and saying, "This is what I'm losing my marriage to." Now, when somebody goes online in that type of emotional state, the internet moves fast. The clip starts spreading. People start picking sides. The story starts growing before anybody knows all the details. And that's exactly what's happening right now. People are trying to figure out what is really going on.
I was coaching our son to lie on me and I had to record it. And it's this. I try to tell everybody he needs some help. And ain't nobody would have listened because he got the money. I gotta say, whatever y'all don't understand, I don't give a live with him. He needs some help. And this is it. This is what I'm losing my marriage to. This right here. I told everybody, y'all gotta help him. He is spiraling. I'm in here with him. I'm trying to love him through it. Marriage has landed me in a very dangerous position. My stepdaughter was just taken by CPS because of her father. CPS and the police have been here 3 times in less than 3 months, and I stood in it with my husband, even though I was scared for my own self. Whatever he wanted me to say, whatever it was, I'm thinking this is my husband. I had everybody around me saying, even after I tried to divorce him the first time, everybody around me says, you can't leave your husband this soon. You said through sickness, through health, through just, you said.
And I love you still. And it is no beef, David, okay? You don't have to hide from me and run from me. I miss Amber. I'm going to be in this room in the corner. I'm not bothering you. You're innocent in this. But never forget, when you lie on people, David, you can get them killed, sent to prison or jail. You can. Yeah. So you must always tell the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Telling the truth about you lie, how you made them lie? I'm not. What are you doing in Layla's room? Framing her? What are you doing in Layla's room? Framing her?
It's everybody else's fault? Wow! So you just don't think any of us fell for the antics either, right? None of us fell for the narcissism. Are you crazy, Amy? Amber? What is it? Like, are you serious right now? You called me crazy, right? You said I was jealous. You said I wanted him when it's always been about the kids. And now you want to sit here and cry and sit here and be like, it's because of what everybody else did to him. No!
Now, after watching that, you can see why this story hit people the way it did. That wasn't no polished statement or press release. That was a raw moment. A woman on camera who looked like her life was falling apart in real time. And when moments like that hit the internet, they don't just stay private. They become public conversations because the internet don't just watch stories anymore. We dissect them. Every word, every detail, every emotion. And that's where we at right now with this situation. A very public moment involving a very famous athlete that has people asking a lot of questions. Questions about what's really going on inside that house. Questions about what led to this point. And questions about why Dwight Howard's name so often seems to be connected to drama off the court. Because if you really step back and look at his history, this is not the first time his personal life has become a major headline. And when a pattern like this starts showing up over the years, people start looking at the story differently. Not just as one incident, but as a much bigger picture. Now, when you see a moment like that online, your first reaction is shock. But if you've been watching Dwight Howard's story for a long time, you also know something else. This is not the first time his personal life has become a public story. And that's what makes this situation so interesting. Because when people talk about Dwight Howard, they usually start with two different versions of him. The first version is the basketball player, the superstar, the #1 draft pick, the dominant center who entered the NBA draft straight out of high school, the player who quickly became the face of the Orlando Magic, the player who could jump out of the gym, block shots, grab rebounds, and keep a smile on his face while doing it. At his peak, Dwight Howard was one of the most dominant players in the league, a 3-time defensive player of the year, a player who took a team to the NBA Finals, a player who was marketed everywhere, commercials, posters, video games. The NBA loved Dwight Howard. But then there was the second version of Dwight Howard, the version that kept showing up in headlines away from the court, the version that people started whispering about, the version that turned a lot of his career into a series of controversies. See, over the years, Dwight Howard has been in the news for so many different personal stories, relationship disputes, child support battles, lawsuits, and a series of public moments that made people start asking questions about his personal life. Not just one time, multiple times. And when somebody's name keeps coming up like that, people start paying attention, because one incident can be bad luck, but a pattern makes people curious. Now, we can't erase what he did in basketball. Never. Dwight Howard will always be a part of NBA history. He won an NBA championship with the Lakers. But when his career moved forward, the stories about his personal life started becoming bigger than his sports life. And that's where things started getting complicated, because professional athletes live two lives, the public life and the private life. The public life is controlled. Interviews, press conferences. The private life, that's where the real chaos can happen. Relationships, family, stress, pressure. And when those two worlds collide, the internet watches everything. That's the reality of being a celebrity. There is no such thing as a private argument anymore. There is no such thing as a private breakdown. The moment that camera turns on, the story belongs to the internet. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. A very personal moment playing out in front of millions of people. A marriage falling apart in public. And a former NBA star whose name is once again at the center of a story that has nothing to do with basketball. But before anybody rushes to judgment, there is something important we do need to talk about. Because stories like this are never as simple as the internet makes them look. Because fame don't just amplify success, it amplifies chaos. When a regular person has problems in their relationship, maybe the argument stays inside. Maybe a few friends hear about it, maybe the family get involved. But when you're a global athlete, there is no such thing as a small argument. Everything becomes a story. And Dwight Howard has been living inside that spotlight since he was a teenager. He came in the NBA in 2004, straight out of high school. The moment he walked into the league, he became a public figure. The cameras followed him, the media followed him, and every decision he made was suddenly part of a public image. Now, for some athletes, that spotlight becomes a motivation. They lock in. They become even more disciplined. They become very careful about how they move. But for other athletes, the spotlight becomes a different kind of pressure. A pressure that never turns off. A pressure that follows you everywhere. In your relationships, in your family, in your personal life. And over time, that pressure can start showing up in very public ways. Because the truth is, athletes are human. They deal with stress, they deal with emotions, they deal with relationships just like everybody else. But their mistakes don't happen in private. They happen in front of millions. And that's what makes a situation like this so complicated. Because right now, the internet is watching a family situation unfold. A very personal situation. A situation involving a marriage and a child. And some very serious accusations. But the reality is, most people on the internet don't actually know what happened inside that house. We don't know what led up to that video. We don't know the conversations that took place before that camera turned on. We only see the moment, one clip, one emotional explosion. And from that moment, the internet starts building a whole story. People pick sides, people start accusing, people start defending, and within hours, a private family situation turns into a public trial. But here's another layer to this story we gotta talk about, because it's not just about Dwight Howard. This is about something that happens all the time in the age of social media. Relationships that break down in public. Emotions that get posted online. Moments that used to be private, now broadcast to millions. And once that happens, there is no going back. And that's the dangerous part about these situations. A moment of pain can turn into a lifetime of headlines. A moment of emotion can change how people see you forever. And that's why stories like this are always hard to talk about, because you have to balance two things at the same time: the public story and the human story. The public story is what everybody is watching right now. The video, the accusations, the internet reaction. But the human story, that's what's happening behind closed doors. The stress, the heartbreaks, the arguments, the reality of two people trying to deal with a very difficult situation. And sometimes the internet forgets that part. Sometimes people forget that behind the headlines is real people involved, real emotions, real consequences, and real lives being changed because of what's happening. Whatever the full truth of the situation may be, one thing is clear: this ain't no basketball story. This is a human story, a story about fame, about pressure, and a story about how fast a private life can become a public conversation. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Like, comment, subscribe. Established Rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.